Darts Premier League Night 12 is here. My name is Corbin from the Parlay Club, and I've got the best bets, the plays the books don't want you knowing about, and previews of all of the 4 matches that we have this week. We're in Liverpool this week, so no one's hometown. Might get some stick for some of the Manchester-based players, Leeds-based players, which is Humphreys and Littler, but they play each other. Let's get right into it. As always, drop a comment with any predictions, like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff. Quick recap of last week. Lost both plays, but they were really small, like 1.5 unit plays. With the bullseyes as I'll touch on later, and then I think I had price as well, -1.5. I won. Oh no, I lie. It was the week we had price +3.5 versus Littler, and then Van Gogh and Clayton go over 8.5, and obviously Van Gogh just didn't show up, as we will get to in a second. I think we have to be really careful with how many plays and the volume we have in the Premier League at the minute. Some really unpredictable results, but even still, 19 and 13 is still a great and profitable run for clients. So going to continue with that. Let's get right into the action. First game is Jan van Veen versus Price. I feel like a broken record at this point, but Van Veen continues to be a dumpster fire. I still think he's overrated. None of my thoughts have changed, and he's really thrown away his chances of even making the playoffs at this point. He's lost 5 straight, all comfortably. Lost 6-2 in the first round last week to Humphreys, who isn't exactly firing. He lost 6-3 at the weekend in the Euro Tour. I'm not sure what's wrong with him exactly. Well, I do. It's everything that I've said's wrong with him for most of the year, but ever since he came back from that surgery, like, he had a little patch of like a week or two where he looked okay, but yeah, he just looks like he doesn't look on it at the minute. Price, on the other hand, has been on fire this year. He won the Euro Tour at the weekend, but he's lost in the Premier League in back-to-back weeks in the first round. Both 6-3 losses to Littler and Rock. I think Price is to win here. -175 feels a bit generous almost. Price has won 4 of the last 5 head-to-heads against Van Veen. 6-2 and 6-1 the most recent ones. -175 feels really good, to be honest. I will probably, if I haven't put any client plays in yet, but I suspect this will be the one that I go for, as price money line and some kind of alt plus over 7.5 legs, or a alt spread kind of thing. We'll decide that later in the week. Also quite like the price -1.5. Oh, it's up here, of course. -105 again feels great. I never understand the difference in price so much between the money line and the -1.5. I feel like it only really comes into effect, well, of course, later in the game, but also with whoever's throwing first. So I quite like price -1.5, and I think he could win -2.5. Quite honestly, I think he needs to throw first to win -2.5. Well, that's where I would feel more comfortable. I think he's just better scoring. I think he's better doubling. I think he's got more confidence. Everything kind of screams price money line to me this week. So that's probably my most confident play across the board, quite honestly. Bunting versus Clayton. Bunting continues to just be bad in the Premier League. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. He lost 6-1 to Rock last week, despite averaging 104, which is really impressive, but 1 for 7 on doubles is going to just kill you in this quick format. Clayton won the whole week last week, despite averaging 88 and 92 in the semi-final and final, but as usual with Clayton, it's his checkouts. He just takes his opportunities. So you kind of look at the two players, and you have Bunting, who's scoring well and finishing awfully, and you have Clayton, who's not particularly scoring but finishing well. It's really who steps up the bad element of their game. I think they both do. So I think Bunting can still score in the high 90s, but if he checks out 40% or more, he wins this game. If Clayton continues checking out like that, but starts averaging nearer the 95s to 100s, then he wins it. It kind of makes it. It kind of shows why the line is minus 135. Everyone would expect Clayton to just blow away Bunting, like that's everyone's first read. But I think this game actually might be a lot closer than everyone is expecting it to be. I quite like these alt totals, which is kind of why I guess they're there at minus 295. I quite like this over 8.5, over 7.5, minus 1,000 seems a bit steep on when you're trusting Bunting's doubling. As I said, 1 for 7 last week. It doesn't exactly fill you with confidence to go for a minus 1,000 leg that involves him needing checkouts. So yeah, I kind of would go even over 8.5, over 9.5, but keep it small. Yeah, I don't want too much on Clayton this week to be honest. Even though he is currently top of the table against Bunting at the bottom, it kind of shows why the odds are that close at minus 135. Quickly want to go over what we have for clients. Usual stuff really. Have managed to hit the around the minus the plus 130 mark for units made for this year. Having a really good year. I think that's another 12 units this week. If we can keep stacking 10, 12 unit weeks, then we're doing great. Includes a range of sports: darts, tennis, motorsport, UFC, golf, all of that kind of fun stuff. As always, if you want to come over and see what kind of plays we have, you load the spreadsheet. As I mention every week now, it takes a minute for it to load, and you can scroll through all this kind of data. It's got every play that I've done this year, win, loss, percentages, all of that kind of fun stuff. So if you want to kind of get an idea for what plays I put out for clients, this is where you need to come. See any records, anything, that kind of stuff you want to see. And obviously I have a link me in the description. Top link takes you to the DubClub you just saw. Third link takes you to the spreadsheet, and the rest are all social medias if you want to join any of those. Would always recommend getting a monthly subscription or a year pass just to cover every sport, proven track record, and anyone can win in a week. Anyone can win or lose in a week, but you give me a month or a year, and I would be pretty confident in the results, and the records kind of show that. So yeah, highly recommend joining and joining the Dub Club. Let's get back into it with Josh Rock versus Van Gerwen. There we go. So Van Gerwen's minus 125, Rock minus 105 here. I think this is maybe the hardest game to have a play on. I don't feel like you can trust either of those right now. I almost want to lean Rock at this kind of price. Rock has won 4 first round matches in Premier League in the row. Although he hasn't been great, he's been getting the job done in the round 1 games. I think he's beat Clayton twice, Bunting once, and Price. So not the highest caliber, but a nice win against Price. Van Gerwen is kind of on a downward spiral the last week or two. Played the European Tour at the weekend. 82, 88, and 91 averages are just not going to cut it. Lost 6-2 in the first round, as I mentioned, to Clayton last week. I have real concerns. His ranking is slowly dipping, and by the end of the year, it's almost showing that he's going to fall out the. I think it's out the top 16 or something, which is crazy, unless obviously he has a good rest of the year and kind of claws it back. Just kind of adds more pressure onto him. If I had to lean anything, it's the Rock to win. Do they have their averages? They do. I love this Van Gerwen. This is great. This actually might be one of my favorite plays. Van Gerwen under 96.5 feels crazy good. I'd have to go back and look at some of his more averages from the last couple of weeks, but as I said, 82, 88, and 91 averages at the European Tour at the weekend. Like 96.5 feels criminally high for that. Again, it's the same average as Josh Rock, so interesting. You see, the books kind of have it swayed in that Van Gerwen's going to go under 96.5, and it's kind of a pick 'em that Rock goes over 96.5, but they have Van Gerwen favored on the money line. Weird combination, but it's going to lead into that. I quite like the Josh Rock spreads. I really like this plus 2.5 on Josh Rock at minus 310. It's hard to trust him, but his performances have definitely taken an uptick. in the last few weeks. Question of motivation, I guess, comes into it. We only have, I think, another 4 weeks, I want to say. Van Gogh's still just about in the hunt for the playoffs because of how well he started the year in the Premier League. Rock's obviously, I think, pretty much out of it unless he wins some nights. So we're going to get to the point where it's kind of desperation for some of these players. But yeah, I'm going to lean Rock in this matchup. And probably one of the, or probably will be the highest scoring and average matches, Humphreys versus Littler. Both are scoring really well. Both are doubling really bad at the minute. Littler won 6-5 last week in round 2. Both averaged 100 plus in that game, and Luke Humphreys had 71% checkouts. You look at the stats and you're like, how did Humphreys lose there? And it all comes down to who has the throw first in these kind of games. Tight match, I'm expecting. It's just who doubles well and who has the throw, I would say, in this game, which leaves me to not have a bet on either of them. Averages could be interesting, although they probably have them juiced into the hundreds for both of them. Yeah, I kind of like this Humphreys 98.5 or more, just because, as I mentioned, Littler kind of makes your opponents have a higher average. I think both of them get into the hundreds, quite honestly. Wouldn't think too much on it. So yeah, favorite plays, price money line, and some form of rock is probably my two most standout plays this week. As usual, want to go over the no bullseye finishes. So it went 2-2 last week. So that's a part loss, not a full loss, because of the way that we do it. And it's still basically the same price as usual. It's now 5-1-5. I'm just going to keep playing it. It's hit. I want to say it's hit the last 3 weeks. Again, it could lose have another few weeks, and we could lose all of them, and I'd be okay. I've committed to playing it on the 2-pick parlay, which is the round robin. This bit here, I'm just going to keep doing it, quite honestly. And that's going to cover most of the darts this week. I don't know where we are next week, but I will check it out, and I'll certainly have a video, client plays, and all of that stuff up at DubClub. As I said, not going to go over it all again, but highly recommend getting at least a monthly subscription and joining me. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And on to next week.